I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. We have with us Sara Trought. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
There we go. I always wonder about how you
Yeah.
pronounce your
No,
name,
it,
but just
yeah,
in
it,
general, right?
yeah.
For those who don't know Sara, she's actually a psychologist,
Actually, yeah, sorry, I'm a registered psychotherapist, just to,
psychotherapist.
yes,
I
it's okay.
apologize.
No
Yes,
worries.
yeah. So for those who don't know what a psychotherapist is, can you elaborate?
Yep. So I'm a registered psychotherapist and I help individuals who are experiencing mental health difficulties. So I help individuals understand their problems and make changes. I use a variety of different therapeutic approaches when I speak with people, but the main approach I use is something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And in utilizing cognitive behavioral therapy, what we do is work together to identify the thoughts that individuals are having that lead to unwanted feelings and behaviors. And so after we identify the thoughts, we work together to develop a plan to challenge and change the thoughts with the aim of if we change the thoughts, the feelings and behaviors also change.
And I guess asking you a question about that, like every person is different, right? So how long on average does it take one of your clients to, start practicing the cognitive behavioral therapy and practice it in their life and see results?
I always get asked at the beginning of a session, how long is this going to take? And that's something that is very difficult to answer. But cognitive behavioral therapy is a short-term therapy approach. So if individuals sort of do the work at home and are able to implement the strategies, they often can see changes almost immediately.
Right, right. Yeah, but I guess everything is subjective when it comes to mental health, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could see results right away, whereas the next person may not have the same
Yep, exactly.
results, right? Yeah. But
Yeah.
I've heard so many positive things about it. I have a family member who uses it in her day to day, and she tells me, Carlene, you don't realize it, but I am using cognitive behavioral therapy when I speak with you. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
exactly. Yeah,
Right.
it's a really straightforward approach that, once again, the goal is just when unwanted feelings show up, to be able to recognize the thinking that's going on that's causing those feelings and then work to change those thoughts.
Ah, very interesting. So, this show is about relationships and the
Yeah.
relationships that we have with our friends and our family. And of course, when I think about relationships, it's usually with someone else, but I always think that relationships are with yourself too. You have to make sure that your mental health is good in order to help others. And I think one thing I want to ask you when dealing with your clients, what is something that you've noticed during the pandemic?
I noticed that sort of, I don't know, lots of individuals are struggling with the isolation of having to be at home. I think kind of in saying that, sort of there's also maybe sort of the reverse that's happening is that individuals that are in relationships, there's also a lot more sort of relationship struggles that are coming up just because two people or more that typically wake up, leave the house and spend time away from each other are now spending a lot more time together. I've also noticed a lot more sort of struggles with anxiety and low mood. I think that that's a result of the fact that we've all had a little bit more time to be a bit more introspective in terms of what's going on with our feelings.
Hmm. And like you said, because like when people are in a relationship, they spend like 8 to 9 hours apart, depending on their work day. Now that
Yeah.
they're working from home, how do we manage what are your suggestions for managing that?
I have been a big proponent with my clients during this pandemic of scheduling. So even with people that are resistant to schedules and typically haven't lived their life on a schedule, I've really encouraged people to, especially with a partner, sit down and get a schedule together, so that they've got set periods of time where they can be alone in the house, have set periods of time where they're going to go out for a walk. Even in terms of sort of that work from home environment, when are you going to schedule that Zoom meeting so that you don't interfere with the other person? When is a lunch break going to be, a dinner break going to be, things like that.
Yeah. And then I think what I've noticed, because I've lived in a household with a family, and it's so important to have a structure when you're dealing with mental health. I did not realize how much structure is involved with my family's household, like that I was living in. She is structured to the core. Like, and I think because everyone's at home because of COVID, it's like one of the kids is downstairs doing their schooling, the other one's in another room, the other one's in the basement. And then we have to rearrange the household, you know what I mean? In order for everyone to function, but also just your day-to-day structure. And I think, like you said, structure is so important now during isolation period. And I didn't realize how much structure I actually needed to implement because my anxiety went up. I think not knowing, for all of us, right? Not knowing how long we're going to be laid off for, how long this is going to last, not having a time frame. That's what adds to it, right?
And I think lots of issues with this pandemic are completely out of our control. So to your point, we have zero control over how long we're going to be locked up inside for. We have little control if we're going to get laid off or have reduced hours at work. But what we can control is, going back to that schedule, we can control what time we're going to get up at. We can control what time we've made a decision to go for a walk at, controlling what time we connect with a friend via video or phone with. And you're right. And I think it's about getting creative with things. So there is a whole lot that we can't do right now, but focusing on what you can do. So if it's a Zoom date, I know I've encouraged clients to sign up for Meetup. Toronto groups have lots of different Zoom meetings, or I know that there's Airbnb experiences online, just kind of experimenting and doing something different, because I think it's also those different things that if we can get planned and once again scheduled in, that gives us something to think about.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and you're listening to Carlene Tonight. Tonight we feature Altered by Mom. The song is Larger Than the Ribs. The band's been together since 2016, and you can check them out on Spotify, on Facebook, and Twitter, Altered by Mom.
Is it worse to be hurt in the heart or the brain?
Or the mind? I don't mind, but I'll sing just the same.
It's a pain in the head, in the ass, it'll pass.
Is it truth? Is it lies? Do we grow? Will we die?
Do we drown or get shot? Maybe choke on the smoke?
Maybe hang by our necks? What the heck? All the same.
Do we hug? Do we kiss? Do we even exist? Are you pissed? Are you mad? I can't tell what this is. 'Cause my heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is looking for a heart, looking for a heart that will take it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. This is strong against weak, I can't speak, I was wrong.
Or not right, but so close. Has a cat and got your nose.
Got your tongue, we had fun, I can't sleep in the dark.
This is sharp, what a treat. If you are what you eat.
Then I'm lost in the fog, acting young, feeling old.
Are you cold? Was it
sometimes I can't, 'cause my heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is looking for a heart, looking for a heart that will take it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. Larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is looking for a heart, looking for a heart that will take it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. Larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs. Ooh, ooh.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and you're listening to Carlene Tonight. Tonight we feature Altered by Mom. The song is Larger Than the Ribs. The band's been together since 2016, and you can check them out on Spotify, on Facebook, and Twitter, Altered by Mom.
You've covered a lot. So in terms of like relationships and being single, but I think the one thing I want to know is, mental health. That's something that you work with every day, people who deal with mental health and their concerns. And my question for you is, how should one cope with mental health issues and being in a relationship versus being single? Because I think now it's changed. Like even for me, Sarah, there were things that came up, and because I started taking medication, and my mood changed, and like we're trying to do the best we can, but sometimes it's hard.
And it is hard. And that's why I think it's really important to then reach out to someone. So if it is contacting a professional such as myself, if it is reaching out to a friend or a family member, but I think it's really important to talk. And if you are struggling, to just say it out loud.
Right.
Just because there is people in your life, once again, kind of, if you don't feel comfortable sharing with a family member, friend, reaching out to a therapist. So reaching out to a therapist, even for a free consultation, just to get a bit of support.
Yeah. Because you don't really want to tell your family everything, and
No, right?
like it's hard. You don't like, I think even when you're at work, I remember I was at work in the fall with my old coworker, and she said, we are all dealing with in the different ways, and some people make it all about them.
Yeah.
And you're listening to them, and they don't realize, when you're listening to them day in and day out, how much stress that is on you as a person. And then you don't realize that. Like I had to reevaluate how much I was speaking to certain friends with mental health concerns, because it was affecting my own mental health. And then it was, because I can't do anything to help you. And I'm the kind of person that wants to help you. So like you said, it's like having to talk to someone else to get feedback on what you need to do. Like what are the next steps going forward, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know you and they need to speak to someone, how can they contact you? Are you on social media? Are you on?
Yeah, so I can be reached at my email address is Sara, SARA, at therapytoronto.ca.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a website, www.talkwithsara.com.
Okay.
So as part of my services, I do offer a free consultation. And
So just for those of you, just how do you spell your name? Because I
right,
know
yeah,
I
sorry,
spell how
it's Trout.
Sarah's spelled.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Sara is spelled SARA.
Yes, I know. I just had to bring that up because some
Yeah,
people spell it with an H, right?
yes, they do. Yeah, and Trout is TROUGHT.
Perfect. So Sarah is a registered, you said psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist.
Yes,
Yeah,
which is a very different thing than a what did I say?
psychologist. Yeah.
Psychologist, because psychologists can write a prescription for medication, whereas you
Well, no,
just make a
actually,
suggestion.
no. Sorry to interrupt. Psychologists have a PhD, so
Right.
they've got their doctorate. I have a master's, so I don't have a PhD. Psychologists don't prescribe medication. Medication comes from a psychiatrist. So a psychiatrist is a medical doctor.
Right. I know. I always get them all mixed up. I do know which one is, but it's good to clarify for everyone listening.
Exactly. It can be confusing. Yeah. And so I don't prescribe medication, but as part of my services, if in talking to someone, I think that they would benefit from medication, I do communicate with a family doctor.
Right.
But I think it's also, once again, kind of medication can be very useful. And I always word it that it gets people to sort of that baseline level of functioning. But I think speaking with someone is invaluable just because I think through speaking with someone, you learn the tools.
Right.
So then you've got the tools and that becomes something that you own. So moving forward, if you find yourself hopefully kind of speaking with someone kind of gives you the strategies and gets you over whatever brought you to therapy. But then in the future, if similar issues come up, you've got these tools, so you know how to manage in situations.
I think there is like mental health. I'm going to bring this up as someone who has some mental health concerns of my own. I think a lot of people do not understand, mental health and how it can affect your day to day. I think people think that you can, like one of my family members thought that I could change my diet to make my anxiety go away. And I said to her, it's not going to go away. It will get better if I change my diet and if I exercise more. Exercise has always been the number one thing to help with most mental health issues. But I wish I could wake up and it would be gone. And I don't feel those feelings that I feel when I am anxious, right?
And I think the other thing that I like to talk to people about is that I don't think the goal of therapy can be to never experience anxiety or low mood again, because when we're individuals living a life, we are part of life. We are going to experience various mood symptoms, be it anxiety, stress, low mood. They are going to show up. But part of the goal of therapy is also learning how to manage it.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing thing. I think, for those who are listening, I'm Carlene and this is Carlene Tonight. I have Sara Trought with me on the show and she is a registered psychotherapist. And I think the one thing we have to remember is that mental health could be something that is ongoing and it can be with you for the rest of your life. I mean, I've been in therapy for 17 years. And I sometimes go through periods, Sara, where I'm like, oh my God, I'm good. I don't need to talk to my therapist. Sometimes it'll be a year, but that's just me not like, you know what I mean? I think I want to handle everything on my own. But when push comes to shove and something is bothering me and I can't solve it on my own, I need to talk to someone else because they're going to give me the solutions I might not even think of.
No, I agree. And I obviously, based on what I do, I'm coming from a bit of a biased position, but I think, I don't know, in an ideal world, speaking to someone. So if it's going to a psychotherapist, a counselor, a psychologist, would be as regular as going for your dental checkup. So we go to the dentist typically every 6 months, and then sooner if we need be, because we take care of our teeth. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, in society, we don't recognize that it's just as important, maybe even more, to take care of our mental health.
Yeah. And I think it's conversations like when Bell Let's Talk started their initiative, it kind of brought that to the forefront because, you know, in family, like since we're talking about relationships and in depending on the family that you grow up in or the culture you are, it's not something you talk about. It's not something you discuss. I'm from the Caribbean, and growing up, like even just saying things like I love you or having like parents who are very affectionate. But another thing that I think that not all families talk about, like more traditional parents, they don't talk about mental health, and they think that everything's okay, or like they think that their way of doing things is okay when it may not necessarily be the best way. And then you realize that, oh my God, you know, I think I had anxiety 4 years ago, but to be quite honest, after talking to my therapist, I think I've had it since I was a kid and I didn't know. Like you're just going through the motions, and then you're not realizing it, but you're functioning as a regular part of society, not knowing that, oh, well, why am I like this? Right. So
Exactly.
And we don't know what like anxiety feels like when you're a kid. It's a little bit different. And I think when you're a kid, you don't always recognize certain emotions or things that may bother you.
And I think that's sort of something else that I talk to individuals about that have kids, is the importance of teaching kids different emotions. So I think it's really important for kids from a very young age to learn that they are going to experience, once again, as part of life, anxiety, stress, nervousness, anger, sadness, happiness. Because I think traditionally we kind of only communicate happiness and sadness.
Yeah.
And when kids, young teens, teenagers inevitably experience a bit of anxiety, then there can be a bit of uncertainty or almost even kind of panic about what's going on right now because this emotion feels so uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. We're in a pandemic, and I read an article, I didn't read it all. It's saying that anxiety and depression is at an all-time high. So that means that people like yourself are probably busier than ever. I know my therapist is very busy. If you can't speak to someone and you have to be on a waiting list, like what should people be doing in the meantime? You know what I mean? Just to help with if they're feeling anxious or having problems sleeping.
And so I think you alluded to this a bit before. I think with anxiety, it's scheduling that time in the day that you get out for a walk. And you might not feel like going for a walk. You might not be motivated to go for a walk. But if you've made a decision to go for a walk at 1 p.m., really challenging yourself to put on your jacket, put on your shoes, and get out and go for a walk. And the same can be said about connecting with someone. So connecting, arranging in advance, if it's a friend or family member that you're going to contact them hypothetically at 6 o'clock. You might not want to do it. You might not be motivated to do it, but you contact them. And kind of even with sleep as well, sort of just being cognizant about what's going on with your sleep. So are you getting enough sleep? So even with mood, yes, talking to them, but thinking about sort of checking in with the basic things. So are you getting the exercise? How's your diet? Are you getting enough sleep? How much alcohol are you consuming? Because I think that's something else that's come up a lot in the pandemic is I think
a lot of people are drinking more.
Drinking more, and I think lots of people turn to alcohol because they think it's going to kind of squash those emotions down. But the reality is that alcohol doesn't help. It actually makes mood symptoms increase.
Oh,
right. And so, and by no means saying not to drink, but I think it's just important to check in. If you are feeling increased anxiety, low mood, check in with yourself. once again, like, how has my diet been? Have I been getting enough exercise? Am I getting enough sleep? How much am I drinking? Am I connecting with people? Because if any of those areas aren't being addressed, then that's something that an individual can change on their own without necessarily having, if they're waiting to sort of speak to a therapist.
Right, right. Yeah, because you know, for me, it took me it was a little bit faster than I thought, but I think it took me like 2 to 3 months to get a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Since we're being open and honest here, this is something that I normally don't talk about on the show, but you know, Sara Trought is a registered psychotherapist, and you can check out her website at talkwithsara.com. It's spelled SARA. If you want to book an appointment to even get a consultation with her. You know, it's people like you that help us get through our rough situations in life, you know, because not everything is perfect right now. And even before it wasn't perfect. So we have to find ways to mitigate that. So I want to thank you, Sara, for taking time out of your day to talk to us. And hopefully you'll be able to come back again and we can talk about some other things, because you brought up some stuff that's interesting. Alcohol being number one. People are drinking a lot more than they used to.
Yeah. No, and thank you for this topic, just because I think this is really important for individuals to be aware of their mental health always, but especially right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I honestly think that this is the time more than anything in the world, because we're, like you said, we're spending so much more time at home.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you go outside. Like, even if you get sick during this pandemic, you don't realize how much you can get outside and get some fresh air, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So thanks again, Sara. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
My name's Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight with Sara Trought.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight.